Imagine a world where the sky stayed silent. No clouds, no rain. Just an endless, empty blue canvas stretching over a world that was slowly dying. The ground was a mosaic of cracks, a testament to the thirst that had taken hold of the planet. Rivers, once mighty and roaring, were now just faint whispers, their beds exposed and dry. The great herds of animals that roamed the plains had vanished, following the water that no longer existed. Plants, brittle and brown, crumbled to dust at the slightest touch. For the people who lived in this world, our earliest ancestors, every single day was a battle for survival. They didn't understand meteorology or climate cycles. They only understood the brutal reality they woke up to each morning. They saw the sky not as an atmosphere, but as a powerful, conscious entity. And in their minds, this entity had abandoned them. Hope, which had once burned bright in their hearts, was now just a flickering ember, threatening to be extinguished by the relentless wind of despair. They would gather Gassine, upward their faces a mixture of prayer and fear, searching for a sign that wasn't there. Every sunrise brought the same question: is this the day it all ends? Survival became a desperate gamble. They dug deeper and deeper into the earth, chasing the ghost of water. They rationed every last drop, every morsel of food. The young grew old before their time, and the old carried the weight of a world on their shoulders. The stories they told around their fires were no longer of heroes and hunts, but of a time when the world was green, a memory that felt more like a dream with each passing day. The silence from the sky was deafening, a constant, oppressive reminder of their helplessness. They were trapped, watching their world wither away, with no power to stop it. Then, one morning, something changed. It wasn't the sun or the wind. It was the air itself. It felt different, heavy, thick, charged with an energy they hadn't felt in generations. A strange darkness began to gather on the horizon, not the darkness of night, but something else entirely. Clouds. For the first time in memory, the empty blue was being filled with shades of gray and deep indigo. The people stopped what they were doing, their hearts pounding in their chests. Was this the end? A final, terrifying punishment from the sky? A low rumble echoed across the plains, a sound so foreign it felt like the world itself was groaning. Thunder, it rolled not just through the air, but through their very bones, a powerful, primal warning from the gods. Fear and awe mixed on their faces as they stared at the celestial spectacle unfolding above them. The sky, once a symbol of their abandonment, was now alive, breathing and speaking in a language they couldn't comprehend. The tension was unbearable. The world held its breath, waiting, and then it happened. A single drop, it hit the cracked earth with a small, sizzling sound. Then another, and another. Soon, it wasn't just drops, it was a torrent. Rain like life itself was falling from the sky. The people didn't run for cover. They stood there, arms outstretched, faces turned upward, letting the cool water wash away the dust and the despair. Laughter and shouts of joy mixed with the sound of the downpour. It was a symphony of rebirth. That rain did more than just soak the land. It rewired the very soul of humanity. It wasn't just water, it was a revelation. It taught them that the same sky that could take everything away could also give everything back. It transformed their fear into reverence, their despair into a new kind of hope, a resilient hope, rooted in the understanding of cycles. This single event shaped their spirituality, their rituals, and their view of the natural world. They began to plan, to observe, to understand the signs. Civilizations would later rise on this very foundation of knowledge, born from a long drought and a single, miraculous storm. This isn't just a story about weather. It is the story of the moment humanity realized that the forces of nature could be both our greatest threat and our ultimate salvation. It is the story of how we learned to look up at the sky and see not just a master, but a partner in the dance of life. The first topic is before the sky spoke. Imagine a world without rain, a world where the sky above is not a promise of life-giving water, but a silent, unknowable mystery. This was the reality for the first humans. Before the first drop of rain ever touched the ground, our ancestors lived in a state of constant, gnawing uncertainty. For them, the sky wasn't a source of comfort or beauty. It was a blank, and sometimes angry, canvas. They didn't understand the science of clouds, the rhythm of seasons, or the concept of weather cycles. The sky was either a blazing, relentless sun, or it was dark and threatening. And the silence, the long stretches of unbroken blue or gray, was often the most terrifying of all. Picture it. Days, weeks, maybe even months, passing under a scorching sun. The earth beneath their feet would slowly crack and harden, turning from soil into stone. Life revolved around water, but its presence was never guaranteed. Small streams they relied on would vanish without warning, dwindling to a trickle and then disappearing completely. Ponds, once teeming with life, would shrink into muddy puddles and then vanish into dust. As the water disappeared, so did the animals. Herds would migrate, following an instinctual pull towards greener, wetter lands, leaving the humans behind with nothing but empty hands and a growing, consuming fear. Every single sunrise brought with it the same desperate question. Will we find water today? It was a question that determined whether they would live or die. Without the predictable cycle of rain, human existence was a game of chance. Survival was a nomadic, moment-to-moment struggle. They followed the winding paths of major rivers, knowing that even these giants could shrink. They set up temporary camps near lakes that were visibly receding day by day. Conflicts would erupt over the last remaining patches of damp, life-sustaining land. In this world, there were no farms. How could you plant a seed in ground that might never see water? There were no stores of food, no way to plan for the future. Survival meant living for today, and only for today. The concept of tomorrow was a luxury they couldn't afford. Hunger was a constant companion, a dull ache that never truly went away. But theirs was a primal terror, and above it all, the sky remained distant, aloof, and utterly unreachable. They would look up, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and desperation, trying to decipher its intentions. But the sky offered no answers. It gave no clues. They didn't know if this vast expanse could help them, or if it was even aware of their suffering. Over generations, this profound fear began to transform. It evolved into belief. The sky, and its powerful silence and unpredictable fury, became a deity. It was a judge, a powerful entity that held the power of life and death, dispensing its judgment without reason or explanation. The sky wasn't just the atmosphere, it was a god. This new belief changed their behavior. People began to watch the horizon with an obsessive intensity. Every subtle change in the air was scrutinized. A slightly darker patch of sky in the distance, a sudden shift in the wind's temperature, a strange, earthy smell carried on the breeze. Any of these could spark a flicker of hope. But hope was a fragile, dangerous thing in a world so harsh. When these signs led to nothing, when the sky remained stubbornly dry, the disappointment was crushing. It hit them harder than the heat itself. Imagine the scene in a small, desperate clan. Children, too young to understand but old enough to feel the gnawing thirst, would cry. The elders, their faces lined with the wisdom of many rainless seasons, would whisper their worries. The entire group would be plunged into heated debates. So hold we mobe, or should we stay? Both choices were a gamble with their lives. Moving meant abandoning the little water they had for an uncertain promise. Staying meant watching their last resource evaporate. This was a world that constantly reminded humans of how small and vulnerable they were. Nature was not a gentle, nurturing mother. It was a powerful, unpredictable force that commanded respect and fear. The relentless silence of the sky hammered home one painful, undeniable truth. If nothing changed, if the water didn't return, their time on this earth was coming to an end. This deep, existential fear, this desperation born from a silent sky, wasn't just a period of suffering. It was a crucible. It was the force that shaped the human spirit, that forged our resilience, our ability to hope against all odds, and our eternal quest to understand the world around us. That fear, born under a rainless sky, set the stage for everything that was to come. It was the quiet before the storm that would change the world forever. The second topic is a world dying of thirst. The world was dying of thirst. At first, it was subtle. A day without rain became a week, then a month. But soon, the effects were impossible to ignore. The land didn't just look dry, it felt utterly dead. The vibrant green grass of the plains turned a sickly yellow, then withered into dust, disappearing completely under the relentless sun. Trees, ancient and wise, dropped their leaves far too early, their branches skeletal against a pale, empty sky, a desperate attempt to conserve the last traces of moisture within their bark. The very earth cracked open, deep fissures running across the landscape like scars, as if the planet itself were breaking under an immense, unseen pressure. It was a silent, slow-motion catastrophe. The animals were the first to suffer. The great herds of grazers, which once moved like rivers across the land, began to teen. They journeyed farther and farther in search of water and pasture, leaving behind a trail of bones and a profound, unsettling silence. The predators that relied on them soon followed, their calls fading into memory. Hunters from the human tribes returned to their camps, empty-handed more and more often, their faces etched with a growing dread. As the animals vanished, so too did the people. Some groups packed what little they had and moved on, chasing rumors of distant oases. But often, there was nowhere left to go. Water sources that had sustained generations, places with names tied to myths and legends of abundance, failed one by one. Springs that were once the heart of a community became muddy pits. Rivers shrank to trickles before vanishing into their sandy beds. The thirst wasn't just a physical sensation. It was a poison that seeped into the very soul of humanity. It changed behavior, twisting bonds of community into threads of suspicion. People became restless, their tempers as short and sharp as the cracked earth beneath their feet. Patience wore thin. Cooperation, the cornerstone of their survival, began to weaken and crumble. Simple arguments over a shared tool or a patch of shade would escalate into bitter fights. Once cohesive groups fractured, splitting apart as different leaders proposed different, desperate paths to survival. Each faction believed their own way offered the only chance. Families were forced to make impossible, heart-wrenching decisions. Who would undertake the perilous journey in search of a new home? Who would stay behind to guard what little remained? And the most agonizing choice of all, who would drink the last few precious drops of water? These were choices that no parent, no child, no leader should ever have to make. The children were the most vulnerable. Their thin, frail cries echoed through the desolate camps, a constant, piercing reminder of the ticking clock that governed their existence. They were too young to understand the complexities of drought and migration, but they understood hunger and they understood thirst. The elders, with memories of a different world, would gather the little ones and share stories of better times. They spoke of lands where water flowed freely from the mountains, of rivers so wide you couldn't see the other side, of rain that fell for days on end. But as the drought wore on, these stories began to feel less like history and more like myths, like beautiful, painful fairy tales from a world that had never truly existed. Hope, once a resilient flame, was slowly, inexorably turning to ash. Yet, humans are creatures of adaptation. They refused to simply lie down and die. They began to dig, their hands raw and bleeding as they clawed deeper and deeper into the dry riverbeds, hoping to find a hidden pocket of water trapped beneath the sand. They became shadow trackers, following the faint trails of the few remaining animals, praying that these creatures would lead them to secret, undiscovered springs hidden in rocky canyons or deep within forests. They rationed every single drop, measuring their survival not in days or weeks, but in mouthfuls. A cup of water was a treasure more valuable than any jewel. When desperation reached its zenith, some turned to the heavens. They began ancient rituals, ceremonies that hadn't been performed in generations. They danced under the scorching sun until they collapsed from exhaustion, their movements a plea to the sky. They made offerings, sacrificing their most valuable possessions, believing that the silent, indifferent sky could be convinced to respond. They prayed to gods of rain and storm, their voices hoarse with thirst and despair. The very idea of rain grew into something larger than life. It was no longer just a meteorological event. It became a symbol of survival itself, the ultimate salvation. People would close their eyes and imagine it, trying to remember the sensation. They dreamed of cold, fat drops of water splashing onto their hot, cracked skin. They imagined the rich, earthy smell that rises when rain first hits dry ground descent they hadn't known in years. They pictured the dead rivers roaring back to life, the landscape transforming from brown to green overnight. Rain was no longer just weather. It was a promise of rebirth. It was everything. But the days stretched into weeks, and the weeks stretched into endless, agonizing periods of oppressive dryness. The fear, which had been a low hum in the background, now reached a terrifying crescendo. Humans, for all their ingenuity and resilience, were standing at the very edge of extinction, and many didn't even fully realize how close they were. One more failed migration, one more dry season, one more riverbed that yielded no water, and entire groups, entire cultures, could vanish from the face of the earth forever, their stories and songs lost to the wind. And then, just as all hope was about to be extinguished, when the last prayers had been uttered, and the silence of resignation had begun to fall, something changed. High above them, in the vast, empty expanse of the blue sky, a single wisp of white appeared. Then, another, and another. After an eternity of stillness, the sky, at last, began to move. The third topic is when the clouds finally gathered. For what felt like an eternity, the sky had been a cruel, empty canvas. Day after day, the sun beat down, scorching the earth, leaving behind a world cracked and thirsty. We had forgotten what it was to look up with anything but a weary squint. But then, something shifted. It wasn't a sudden event, but a slow, creeping change that you could feel in your bones before you could see it. The air grew thick, heavy with an unfamiliar weight. The relentless wind, which had always blown from the same direction, suddenly changed its mind, whispering secrets from a new corner of the world. And the sun lost its bite. It was still there, a pale disk in the sky, but its fire seemed banked, its cruelty tempered. Those of us who spent our lives reading the sky, searching for any sign, any whisper of hope, we noticed it first. It was a change too profound to ignore. Far on the horizon, where the bleached sky met the dusty earth, dark shapes began to form. At first, we didn't dare to believe it. Hope is a dangerous thing in a world like ours. We'd seen mirages before, tricks of the light that promised water and delivered only more dust. The elders, their faces etched with the memory of 100 false dawns, warned us. Don't celebrate too soon, they rasped, their voices dry as the riverbeds. The sky has tricked us before, but these shapes were different. They didn't shimmer and vanish. As the hours crawled by, they grew. They swelled, becoming larger, thicker, their edges softening into a deep, bruised purple. They moved with a slow, deliberate grace that spoke of immense power. There was no denying it anymore. The clouds were gathering, and with that realization, a feeling we thought we'd forgotten returned. Fear. But this was a new kind of fear, mingled with a terrifying, exhilarating awe. We didn't know if this was salvation or a new form of destruction. Was the sky finally offering a drink, or was it preparing to drown us? We had stories, of course, faded legends passed down through generations about the before times. Stories of great storms, of winds that could tear trees from the ground, of a sudden, biting cold, and of sounds that shook the very foundations of the world. But we had never seen rain. Not like this. The very concept was alien, a myth. As the clouds consumed the sky, a hush fell over the land. Children, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and wonder, stopped their games and clung to their parents' legs. The hunters, out on the plains, froze mid-stride, their spears forgotten. Entire communities stood together, a silent, upturned sea of faces, all staring at the celestial drama unfolding above. Then came the sound. It started as a low, distant rumble, a vibration felt more in the chest than heard with the ears. But it grew, rolling across the sky, a deep, guttural growl that seemed to come from the beginning of time itself. Thunder, the first thunder in living memory. The sound was primal, terrifying. It spoke of a power we couldn't comprehend. Some people crumpled to their knees, convinced the sky was finally showing its anger, punishing us for some unknown sin. Others, tears streaming down their faces, raised their hands to the heavens, believing this was the sign they had prayed for, the answer to a lifetime of silent pleas. For the first time, the sky wasn't silent. It was alive. It had a voice, and it was speaking a language we had long forgotten. The world responded in kind. The animals, with their ancient instincts, felt it too. The birds vanished, seeking shelter in whatever cracks and crevices they could find. The herds of dust-eaters shifted nervously, their calls filled with a new, urgent panic. Even the land itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The entire world paused, suspended in that agonizing, beautiful moment between hope and fear. We had no words for what we were witnessing. Our language was built for sun, dust, and survival. It had no vocabulary for this majestic spectacle. There was no science to explain the atmospheric pressure, no meteorology to predict the coming deluge. There was only belief, and every person had their own. Some thought the sky was testing our courage. Others believed a great, forgotten God was returning. The more practical among us began to put out the precious fires, knowing that whatever was coming, fire would be no defense. Camps drew closer, people huddling together not just for warmth, but for the shared comfort of being together in the face of the unknown. In that moment, everything else faded away. We weren't thinking about the next hunt, the dwindling water supplies, or the plans for tomorrow. All our focus, all our being, was directed upward. We were a species defined by our struggle against the sky, and now the sky was finally responding. We didn't know what would happen next. Would the clouds pass over? A cruelties? Would they unleash a gentle, life-giving shower? Or would they break open with a violence that would sweep us all away? We had no answers. But as the first drop of water, cold and impossibly real, struck the face of an elder, we knew one thing with absolute certainty. The world we knew was over, and a new one was about to be born. The fourth topic is the first drops of life. Imagine a world baked into a featureless, ochre wasteland. A sky, not blue, but a hazy, relentless white, bleached of all promise. Humanity, a scattered remnant, huddled in the skeletal remains of cities. Their memories of green fields and flowing rivers, nothing more than fading myths, whispered to children who had never seen a cloud. The earth was a drum, stretched taut and brittle, cracked by an unending sun. Every day was a desperate search for the last dregs of water, a currency more precious than gold, more vital than breath. Hope was a dry weed, crumbling to dust in the wind. The planet was dying, and humanity with it. Then, one day, something shifted. A subtle change in the air, a scent that no one alive could name. The eternal, oppressive heat seemed to waver. Just for a moment, people looked up, their eyes squinting at the pale sky, daring to wonder. Was it a trick of the mind? A cruel mirage born from collective despair? For generations, the sky had been nothing but a source of torment, a vast, empty furnace. But now, a shadow, a single dark smudge, appeared against the whiteness. It grew, spreading like an ink blot on dry parchment. A murmur rippled through the parched settlements. Fear mixed with a strange, forgotten feeling. And then it happened. A single drop. It hit the ground with a sound softer than a whisper, but it echoed like a thunderclap in the profound silence. A dark speck on the endless dust. At first, it meant nothing. What could one drop do? It couldn't quench the thirst of a single child, let alone save a dying world. It was an anomaly, a fluke. But then, another fell, and another. Soon, the ground was peppered with dark spots. The rhythm quickened, a gentle patter that grew into a steady drumming. The earth, so long, pale, and lifeless, began to darken as water touched it for the first time in ages. The dust, which had choked the air for centuries, began to turn into mud. The deep, jagged cracks that scarred the land started to close, drinking in the moisture with a thirst that seemed bottomless. Rain, the word itself, felt alien on their tongues. People stood frozen, their bodies stiff with disbelief. Some began to laugh, a raw, incredulous sound that cracked from their dry throats. Others wept openly, tears mingling with the raindrops on their faces, unsure which was which. A man reached his hands upward, palms open to the heavens, letting the cool water cascade over his skin, trying to convince himself it was real. Children, born into a world without such wonders, danced in circles, splashing in the newly formed puddles, their joy pure and instinctual, even if they didn't understand the significance. Elders, who only knew the rain from stories passed down through generations, closed their eyes, overwhelmed by a sensory memory they never possessed. A deep, rich, loamy smell filled the air, the scent of wet earth. It was a fragrance humanity would vow never to forget again. The planet responded almost immediately, as if it had only been sleeping. The brittle, skeletal leaves of long dormant plants lifted, unfurling toward the sky. Seeds, buried deep beneath the hardened soil, protected in their dormant state, began their silent, miraculous work. The land, which had been a corpse just moments before, felt a tremor of life run through it. Life was returning. Small streams, mere trickles at first, began to carve new paths through the mud, seeking out the ancient, forgotten riverbeds. Where there had been nothing but dust, water now flowed. Cautiously, animals emerged from their hidden burrows and caves. Birds, whose ancestors had long since vanished, seemed to appear from nowhere, their calls a symphony of rebirth. Life was following the water, just as it always had. But the rain did more than just feed the land. It transformed the human soul. The brittle shell of fear that had encased every heart began to soften into hope. The knowing desperation that had driven them to the brink turned into a quiet, profound belief in tomorrow. Humans learned a powerful, humbling lesson that day. Nature, the same force that could scorch their world and bring them to their knees, also held the power to save them. It was a moment of awakening that would reshape human thinking forever. The rain was no longer just water. It became sacred. The sky was no longer a relentless enemy, but a giver of life, a source of miracles. In the days and weeks that followed, People began to watch the sky with a new kind of intelligence. They started to remember, or perhaps relearn, the ancient patterns. They noticed how certain clouds brought certain kinds of rain, how the wind could be a harbinger of change. The very idea of seasons, once a forgotten legend, was reborn. From this great rain, the seeds of civilization were planted. The concepts of waiting, of planning, of preparing for the future took root. They weren't just surviving day to day anymore. They were building a future, guided by the rhythms of the natural world they had almost lost. They learned to store water, to channelize, to work with the land, instead of just taking from it. The first rain didn't just end a global drought. It washed away despair and watered the seed of a new humanity, one that understood its place in the grand, delicate balance of life. And as they looked to the future, they did so with a humility and gratitude that would become the foundation of their new world. The fifth topic is rain that changed humanity. Have you ever stood in the rain, feeling the drops on your skin, and who's felt alive? We often see rain as just weather, a simple part of our daily lives. But what if I told you that one particular rainfall, long ago in our deep past, didn't just end the drought? What if it fundamentally changed what it means to be human? Today, we're going on a journey back in time, to a world scorched by an unforgiving sun, where a small group of our ancestors looked to a cloudless, empty sky, their hope almost gone. We're going to explore the story of the rain that changed everything. Imagine a world without rain, not for a week, not for a month, but for years. The ground is cracked and barren, rivers have shrunken into muddy trails, plants have withered to dust, and the animals our ancestors hunted have either vanished or grown terrifyingly scarce. Survival is a desperate, daily struggle. Every sunrise brings more heat, more thirst, more fear. Humanity is on the brink, a species wandering a dying land with no guarantee of another day. This was the reality for our early ancestors. Their world was defined by scarcity and constant movement, a relentless search for the next water source, the next meal. The sky was just an empty, indifferent expanse of blue or a hazy, sun-bleached white. It offered no comfort, only heat. Then, one day, something different happened. A whisper of change in the air. The wind shifted, carrying a scent they had smelled in so long it was almost a forgotten dream. The smell of moisture, of damp earth. Tay looked up, and for the first time in an age, the sky wasn't empty. Small, dark smudges appeared on the horizon. Clouds. At first, there was probably disbelief, maybe even suspicion. They had seen clouds before that promised nothing, but these were different. They grew, darkening, swelling, swallowing the oppressive blue. A low rumble echoed in the distance, a sound so foreign it might have been frightening. Was it a beast? A spirit? They had no words for it, no science to explain it. There was only a primal feeling, a mix of fear and a tiny, fragile spark of hope. And then, it happened. A single drop, then another. And another. A collective gasp must have swept through the clan. People would have stopped, frozen in place, looking up with wide eyes as the first rain in a generation began to fall. Imagine the children, born into a dry world, feeling rain for the very first time. The shock, the confusion, the wonder. The elders, their wrinkled faces turned to the sky, tears mixing with the raindrops. This wasn't just water, it was a miracle. It was life itself, pouring down from a sky they thought had abandoned them. They would have danced, shouted, and let the water wash over them. A baptism that cleansed away the dust and despair of years. That day, the rain didn't just save their lives, it rewired their minds. After that first, transformative rainstorm, the world was never the same. Most importantly, the sky was no longer just a backdrop. It became a character in the human story, a powerful force to be watched, respected, and understood. Humans began to look up, not just with hope, but with intelligence. They started noticing patterns. They learned that certain types of clouds brought rain, while others were just passing through. They felt a change in the wind's direction, smelled the air before a storm, and connected these signs to the life-giving water that followed. This was the birth of observation, the very first step toward science. They didn't understand meteorology, of course, but they understood cause and effect. Nature, they realized, moved in cycles. Droughts didn't have to be the end. They could be waited out. This newfound predictability had a profound effect on how they lived. Before, life was nomadic out of necessity, a constant chase for resources. But now, with the return of water, the land began to heal. Green shoots pushed through the cracked earth. The animals, drawn by the new growth, returned. For the first time, our ancestors could entertain a revolutionary idea. What if we didn't have to keep moving? What if we could stay here? The concept of a settlement, a home, began to take root. This was a monumental shift. Instead of reacting to crisis, they could start planning. They could store water. They could observe which plants thrived after the rain and where the animals gathered. The endless, exhausting marathon of survival was slowly being replaced by the patient, strategic rhythm of stability. The rain didn't just change how humans interacted with the land. It reshaped their inner worlds. It sparked the birth of belief and spirituality. When survival is directly linked to an event you can't control, you naturally seek to understand and influence it. The sky, once ignored, became sacred. It was the home of a powerful, life-giving force. This is likely where the first rituals began. Perhaps they danced to thank the sky. Perhaps they made offerings, leaving a portion of a precious hunt as a gesture of gratitude. They created stories to explain the rain myths of sky gods, celestial battles, or ancestral spirits weeping for them. These beliefs weren't just simple superstitions. They were a powerful psychological tool. They provided a framework for understanding a chaotic world, gave meaning to their suffering and survival, and fostered a sense of community. Praying together, celebrating the rain together, these acts strengthened the bonds that held the clan together. The sky wasn't just weather anymore. It was a deity, a parent, a source of ultimate power. With this new stability and a shared belief system, another crucial element for progress emerged: the transfer of knowledge. The elders who remembered the signs of the last rains became the most valuable members of the group. They were the libraries, the living encyclopedias of survival. They taught the younger generations how to read the sky, how to interpret the behavior of birds and insects, how to find water even in dry times by digging in certain places. "Look," an elder might say, pointing, "when the clouds look like bruised mountains, the great watering is near." Or, "Smell that, the air is heavy. Stay close to shelter." This wasn't just storytelling, it was a curriculum for survival. Memory became the most important tool. Observation became wisdom. And this process of teaching and learning, passed down through generations, laid the foundation for all human culture and education. As people stayed in one place, they had more time to observe the plants around them. From that first successful harvest, the dominoes fell fast. So, the next time you find yourself caught in a downpour, take a moment, close your eyes, and listen. Listen to the rhythm of the drops hitting the ground. In Tatsuon, you can hear an echo of our deepest past. You can hear the celebration of our ancestors, the sigh of relief from a thirsty world, and the whisper of a future being born. That rain carries an ancient meaning, a reminder of a time when our very existence hung in the balance, decided by a change in the weather. It reminds us of our profound connection to the natural world and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. The first rain didn't just water the earth, it planted the seeds of civilization, and we are all living in the world that grew from it. It's a powerful thought, isn't it? The idea that one rainstorm, millions of years ago, changed our destiny forever. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of humanity and our world. What other natural events do you think shaped our evolution? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading them. Until next time, stay curious.